This afternoon, I'm on my way to go do an inspection of a roof for a real estate transaction, and those can always be challenging because if the roof is not in pristine condition, oftentimes the buyers are going to want a new roof before they buy the house. But if the roof is not in such a condition as would warrant an insurance claim, then the homeowner may end up having to pay for the repairs out of pocket. This roof on this house is way out on the eastern prairies, so miles and miles away from anywhere, and it's starting to rain. Oh boy, is that the house? I think that's it. Yep, that's definitely it. Well, I'll see how wet I'm going to get on this one. So this roof is literally in the middle of Hail Alley. They get so much hail out here. And so, but the one thing I don't know is how old the roof is. Because if the roof is new, there's probably not going to be much going on. But even just right here at the edge of the roof, I can see hail damage on here, which no surprise. I'm sure they've even seen their fair share of tornadoes out here. All right, this looks like an easy one. All right, so as soon as I got up on this roof, I started seeing hail damage immediately. And so this is the complication for a homeowner, is that if he wasn't trying to sell this house, the hail damage that he has on the roof, sure, it's there, but it's not that substantial to where it would really cause a homeowner an immediate concern. Now, would he need to file a claim for that? Well, he may want to. But because of the fact that he's trying to sell the house, more than likely he's going to have to file a claim. Or he's going to have to pay out of pocket to replace the roof, because a buyer isn't probably going to want to buy a house that has existing hail damage on it, because if their insurance company sends out an underwriter to look at it, or if they look at hail reports and then permit reports to see if the roof has been replaced, they might see that the roof hasn't been replaced and they may not want to extend coverage to the house. So complications for a homeowner in this situation all the way around. Now, not only is this hail alley, but it's wind alley too. They get so much wind out here, very, very high wind. And I'm gonna guess that what has happened here is that the wind took off some of the ridge shingles from right here, and he didn't have any ridge shingles, or the roofer didn't have any ridge shingles when he came out to do the repair, and ended up just using regular field shingles to replace this ridge. So these are standard ridge shingles here. And then these, you can see, look different. Well, these are called field shingles. So this is what goes in the field over here. Ridge shingles, field shingles. Ridge shingles, field shingles. Served its purpose, but that's not what you want to see. So now what I need to do is start collecting all of the data that I need to be able to build a correct scope of work, so that I can then create an estimate that we can then present to the homeowner and to the insurance company. And so to do that, what I need to do is start counting accessories, like how many skylights we have. I've got to measure the skylights and all the box vents, the pipe jacks. I've also got to indicate that there's 2 dishes up here that are going to have to be detached and reset. Let me show you some other details that are kind of important, because it definitely affects the cost of the job. Here, I can show you right here. So the house has drip edge on it, but the drip edge is not a standard color. The drip edge is painted. So that's something that has to be included in an insurance claim. the fact that we've got to detach and reset, or detach and replace the drip edge, but we can't replace the drip edge with a standard color and give him like, kind, and quality replacement. So the drip edge that goes back on here has got to be painted to match what's coming off because it matches the trim, unless the homeowner decides that he wants a standard color drip edge. But nonetheless, the insurance company needs to pay to paint the new drip edge that's going back on here. So these are all little details that go into creating a correct scope of work. And that's why it's important to have a roofer know these things to build a correct scope of work, because adjusters don't typically pay this kind of attention. So homeowners, if your roofer's estimate is higher than your insurance claim, it's not because the roofer's trying to gouge the insurance company. It's primarily because the insurance company doesn't take into consideration this level of little details to make sure that you're fully indemnified, to make sure that you're getting a roof going back on that matches what you had before the storm. So I like to just get photos of everything, and then I'll come back later and I'll measure the skylights, measure the pipe jacks, count the pipe jacks. And okay, so maybe you're wondering, am I going to hand measure the roof? Well, I could hand measure the roof, but I can buy a satellite measurement, and the cost of that is low enough that it compensates me for the time that it would take me to hand measure this roof. So no, I'm not going to hand measure the roof for you purist roofers out there who demand that roofs be hand measured. I'm actually not going to hand measure this roof. Another thing that's required by code here is that there be closure flashing up under these soffit corners right here. Well, your insurance company typically doesn't include anything like that in their claim. They just expect your roofer to eat that cost. Just consider it a cost of doing business. But if you have what's called ordinance and law coverage on your policy, they have to pay to meet code so that your new roof passes code. Well, this is code, so we have to install it. Therefore, we want your insurance company to pay for it, and you should want your insurance company to do. Okay, so one other little detail that your roofer will most likely catch and include on his quote that your adjuster is not going to catch is this area right here. Okay, so code here where I am, it may be different other places, but our code requires what's called a kick-out diverter right there. Just kind of an angled, how do I, it's kind of just an angled piece of metal that slides in under the siding and kicks out like this to divert water into the gutter, so that way you don't have water running down the siding in between the gutter and the siding, or behind the siding, which would even be worse. And this house actually has, there's another spot right there that needs it. And then there's another one down on that end of the house. So homeowners, this level of attention to detail will drive your insurance company crazy. And it might even drive you crazy as you start kind of watching the back and forth between your insurance company and your roofing contractor, if there is that kind of back and forth. But this is why this happens, is because we're trying to make sure that your roof that goes back on meets code and it matches what you had at the time of the storm. It's not like we're trying to say, oh, Mr. Adjuster, you need a kick-out diverter here, and so you have to pay for that. For fluff reasons, it's because it won't meet code if it doesn't have that. And like I say, if you have ordinance and law coverage on your policy, then your insurance company has to pay for that. And you shouldn't expect that your roofer should have to eat that, even though that's what your insurance company expects. Okay, so now the only job that I've got left to do is just go talk to the homeowner and kind of let him know what he needs to do. But the big thing is, I want to talk to him too about um, the, the, the big things he's got to know before he files a claim is what is his deductible and what is his coverage type, because that's going to kind of force his hand on whether or not he feels like he needs to file a claim. Because if he's got a huge deductible, he may not want to file a claim. If his coverage is actual cash value, then he's going to have to pay for some or most of the roof out of pocket anyway. So those kinds of things are important for a homeowner to know.